For making bread, we'll start with 3/4 of a tablespoon or so of just dry bulk yeast. Rapid rise is fine. Any kind of yeast is okay. It all works pretty much the same. A couple of tablespoons of sugar. If you like your bread with a little sweetener in it, or a little sweeter, you can do that. I use the sugar primarily just to make the yeast active very quickly. It doesn't really flavor the bread. You don't really get sweet bread out of 2 tablespoons of sugar. Next step is, if the water ever warms up, I'll have some hot water. And this is the thing that I measure. I measure this because this makes I know that 1 cup of water for me makes the correct size loaf for what I do. So you may have to adjust that just a little bit one way or the other. Just add it all together. Take a nice big spoon. Stir it and kind of get the clumps out of it. Doesn't look like much. Looks like muddy water. I'm going to cover this with saran wrap. Walk away from it. Come back in 15 or 20 minutes. The yeast should be proofed. It should be beginning to get foamy. Sometimes I let it get real foamy. Sometimes I'm in a hurry and I don't let it get too foamy. So whatever. So I've got it all. It's foamy. So this is garlic powder. Not that much. Onion powder. A little finer grind, so we'll get that, like that. This is a whole oregano. Makes your bread smell really good. About like that. And basil leaves. I like a little more oregano and a little more basil than some people would maybe. Not like that. This is olive oil. Just a little bit, not much. And this is fresh salt. Maybe. Yeah. Teaspoon, tablespoon, something like that, maybe. Okay, so that's all of your dry ingredients except flour. And then, of course, I use this King Arthur all-purpose flour. No secret to this. The trick here is just to get the right amount, and it's really very easy. So I'll throw in a cup and a half or so, maybe not quite a cup and a half. And then I just mix it in the bowl. And that's not quite enough to get it. That's not enough to get it to pull away from the sides of the bowl. So it's okay. Just mix it up. Kind of lumpy. Very appetizing. Smells good anyway. Maybe another 3/4 of a cup. Who knows? Now that's going to be enough to make it pull away from the sides of the bowl. In fact, that might be just about the right amount of flour. We'll see. What you do is you stir it around and it gets crumbly, if you will. Try to get it off the sides of the bowl. Flour on your hands. Clean your spoon off. And then start mixing it with your hands. And it's sticky inside. Dry on the outside, of course, because it's got flour on it. So just mix it. And when you're not getting any really sticky spots on the inside, then you're pretty much done. You don't want it to be dry, and you don't want it to be hard. You want it to be soft dough, but not soggy. So it'll make up a ball in just a couple of minutes here. And like that. And you can see it's kind of shaggy at this point. You just keep mixing it until it starts to mix together better. And I think the consistency is the trick to making bread. If you get your dough too hard, it won't rise. If you get it a little too soft, no big deal. Your bread, the crumb is not quite right if your bread dough is too wet, but that's not too big a deal. So this is pretty soft, and just a little bit sticky. So I could add a little more flour to it, but you know what? I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I'm just going to put it in the bottom. I'm going to take and oil the bottom of this bowl, just like that. Going to oil the bowl. I'll throw that back down in there. I'm going to cover it with saran wrap, and I'm going to walk away and leave it for an hour or an hour and a half. It'll more than double in size because it's pretty loose. It'll more than double in size. That's fine, and then we'll knead it. So we're back to make bread, and we'll just sprinkle a little flour. Now this bread dough is wet, pretty sticky and wet, which is okay. It rises just fine like that, makes up bread dough just fine. Sprinkle a little flour on the top, and then we'll go through and knead the bread. Very simple process of just folding the bread in on top of itself. And we're going to do this until this bread is the correct consistency, which is, it'll be dry, not dry, but elastic, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. You can see how it pulls apart at this stage. It's flour mixed in with it, but anyway, and you'll feel the bubbles come out of it. You'll hear it pop occasionally. So what we'll do is we'll just stand here for 3 or 4 minutes, whatever it takes, and we'll knead this bread. And when the bread's right, it has an elastic feel. Hi, boss.
Hi.
When the bread is right, it'll have an elastic feel, and it won't be dry, but it also won't be wet. It won't be sticky. That's for sure. The one thing you want to avoid is you don't want your bread to be sticky. And so this bread, when I had it in the bowl, because it was a little wet when I finished with it, took about an hour to double in size, and that's fine. If the consistency was a little drier, it would have taken a little longer to double in size. And I've had it take as long as 2 hours or 3 hours even. Now this bread's beginning to get elastic, and you can see that the texture's changed and it's starting to become elastic. If you were real impatient, you could bake it just like this and it'd be just fine. The thing to avoid is to allow the bread to get overworked and become tough, because then it won't rise on the next when you put it in the bowl and you put it in the pot. You can feel it's still getting just a little bit sticky. So just add use a little of the flour that's on the board to make it work. The boss is ready to go to work. Hi, boss.
Hi. Making bread.
Leaves me at home, forces me to make bread. And I just gather up the flour that's on my board here and use it. So as long as the bread's sticky or wet, I'll just keep adding a little flour to it as I need it. getting close. It's no longer sticky. It's got just a little dampness to it. So we'll just roll a little more flour in it. Looks like this is going to be okay. Now, to make it into a loaf, everybody seems to have a little different idea how to do this, and here's how I do it. Because I cook my bread in a round pan, I basically fold it under on itself. I make a brain. So I make a brain out of it. Smooth it up. Make it about the right size I want. Make sure there's no wrinkles in the top of it. And then I use parchment paper. And I just take my bread, set it on parchment paper, put it in the pot. It's there. This will take maybe 45 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. Just keep an eye on it to rise. When it rises to about this point, just a little above the top, I'll put it in the oven. I'll bake it at 350 for 30 minutes, 32 minutes. My oven's a little different, so 350 for 32 minutes, and then it'll be done. We'll see. Okay, well, she's just about ready to go in the oven. You can see that it's risen just above the top of the pan, just barely. I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes. But the last thing I want to do is I want to take a steak knife, or serrated knife, and I want to make 3 slices in the top. Number 1, it's very decorative, and then number 2, it will relieve some of that pressure on that bread so that it will, set this camera down. And so I take it and I just score the top of it, like that. Now I'll let it rise just a couple more minutes, and sometimes I sprinkle it with just a little bit of cornmeal, if you like your bread with a little crunch on top. Jeannie likes hers just plain. We'll leave it like that. Into the oven, 350, 32 minutes. Okay, well, the timer just went off. It's been 32 minutes. Let's have a look, see what we got. Just about right. Now, a lot of people leave their bread in the pot, but because this is cast iron, and because that cast iron gets really hot and maintains heat, this bread would continue to cook on the bottom, and I don't want to do that. So I immediately remove my bread from the cast iron, take it right off, and then I just set it back on the stove, and there you have it. Bread ready to eat. Simple as can be.